Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Fantasy Baseball. I'm John Cuh, and I am joined by my co-host, as always, Patrick Fitzgerald. Patrick, how are you doing?
Hey John, I'm doing pretty well. Orioles performance aside, my teams are doing well. I moved into the top 100 of the RotoWire Online Championship overall contest for the first time. I think yesterday or Monday, so that was pretty cool to see. It's a contest that I think has almost 2,800 people. So my team's doing really well. So I think that'll be a fun thing to see out. But yeah, how are you?
I'm doing all right. The Twins had a little bit of a snag. They're currently on a small two-game losing streak, so nothing compared to what you're dealing with, obviously, on the season-long schedule. But no, it's been good. Fantasy's been going really well for me. I'm kind of focusing a little bit more on my small little redraft leagues as opposed to the big field ones that I'm in. What do you think has been the secret sauce to your performance in the RotoWire Online Championship so far?
Yeah, my offense has just been going crazy. I think my offense is in the top 50 of the overall. And I took a pretty offensive heavy approach in the draft because I think I'm better at targeting pitchers later and in fab. And I kind of really try to be intentional about that for the first time, and it's worked pretty well. First two picks was Tatis and J Rod, so guys who have been good but not great. I think I've gotten a lot of good stuff from Cal Raleigh. He's been, I mean, incredible.
Oh yeah,
Riley Green, Tyler Soderstrom. I think I got him close to the end of the draft. So yeah, just been really good on the hitting, and I've been slowly working down my pitching ratios after I got bombed by Nestor Cortez and Chris Paddock in the first week of the season. So it's been a long road
yeah,
back.
yeah. That's pretty tough. I'm assuming you dropped Chris Paddock immediately, right?
Yeah, I didn't get any of the
Yeah,
good stuff. I got the bad
didn't get
start and
anything
then
good stuff.
the second start, which was not as bad but not good, and then didn't get anything else.
Right. Yeah, that's tough. All right. Well, this is a little bit of a shorter episode. We're actually recording this on Wednesday, so we are not going to have our usual bevy of player performance conversations, but we're still going to come with a bunch of news and notes about baseball, about injuries. Still recap some of the hitter pitcher performances from the past week and some streaming recommendations as well. Obviously, some of those might change because we are literally talking about them in the middle of the week, so some of the schedules might adjust if a random pitcher gets called up or something like that. But just so you are all aware, that is what's going on right now. But before we get into it, just a reminder, you can follow our podcast on Twitter at ThisWeekPL. You can send us your fantasy baseball questions to our email, thisweekplpod@gmail.com. And lastly, make sure that you subscribe to or follow the podcast on whatever streaming platform that you listen to. Again, we're on all of them, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're even on YouTube. So wherever you listen to your podcast, make sure you follow us and leave a 5-star review if you enjoy listening to the show. All right, we are going to get into the injury updates. Not as many as last time, not as many marquee names, I should say, but still a decent amount. We'll start with some placements. So Matt Vierling of the Tigers, super unfortunate for him. He literally got called up, basically got activated from the IL on Friday, and then this week he's back on the 10-day IL with a right shoulder inflammation. Nick Kurtz of the Athletics going on the IL with a left hip flexor strain. He was actually had a kind of slow start after the A's called him up, but he's been pretty solid over the last couple of games. Has 4 home runs and 9 RBI in his last 7. Michael King of the Padres going on the 15 DL with right shoulder inflammation. All this because he slept awkwardly on his shoulder, which is kind of an unfortunate way to get a pitching injury, but it is what it is, I guess. Jock Peterson of the Rangers going on the IL with a right hand fracture. Unfortunately, he is going to be out for quite a bit, um, healing from that. Miguel Amaya of the Cubs going on the 10-day IL with a left oblique strain. He'd actually been a solid contributor at the catcher position, 4 home runs and 25 RBI, but he's going to miss about 4 to 6 weeks. And then Yimi Garcia, Toronto Blue Jays going on the 15 DL with right shoulder impingement. They're going to lose a high leverage option, which is unfortunate, but we'll see how that goes for the bullpen there. And Alex Bregman of the Red Sox going on the 10-day IL with a quad strain. Obviously, that's kind of what was big news at the beginning of the week. Um, for him, he kind of mentioned this was actually a little bit worse than what he's dealt with before. So it looks like the timetable to come back might be a little bit longer than fans are hoping, especially with how good Bregman has been this season in Boston.
Yeah, the Bregman blow, definitely the biggest one of the bunch. Obviously, it led to the promotion of Marcelo Meyer, who we're going to talk about later. But that one really hurts. He's been incredible this year. Nick Kurtz down too, just as he was getting going, which is unfortunate. The rest of them, I don't think are huge fallouts. The Tigers' playing time situation is just going to get more complicated. So Vierling going down might not be the worst thing in terms of clarity, but yeah, not a huge fantasy game changer.
Yes, especially because he literally just got off IL, so it's just not going to change too much for that team. So yeah, but for sure it's going to be a big deal with Bregman going off. But at least we get to see another prospect. Unfortunately, it's not Roman Anthony. I don't know why they refuse to call up Roman Anthony, but that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah,
In terms of
seriously.
returns, yeah, in terms of returns from the injured list, we have Richard Fitz, the Red Sox, did come back from the 15-day IL yesterday, pitched 3 innings. Um, kind of going to figure out what the Red Sox ultimately end up doing with him. He could get sent down to the minors. He also could be replacing Hunter Dobbins, who pitched in relief today in the rotation. So we'll see what the Red Sox do there with their pitching rotation. DL Hall of the Brewers is returning from the 60-day IL. It looks like he is joining the bullpen. Unfortunately, Logan Henderson, who's been really solid in his spot starts in the majors, was optioned to AAA as the corresponding moves. Casey Mize was activated from the 15-day IL yesterday after dealing with a hamstring strain. He's been out for 2 weeks. Came back looking really solid, 5 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. And Corey Seager of the Rangers was activated from the 10-day IL after dealing with his hamstring injury. Here's to hoping he doesn't immediately go back onto the IL, just like the previous situation a couple weeks ago.
Yes, I was excited to get him back in my lineup and hoping it lasts longer than last time. We'll see though. But yeah, Henderson getting option, just a huge bummer. He's been the Brewers' best pitcher, basically full stop. Like you don't even have to qualify it. Obviously, he only had a few starts, but still. So hopefully we see him sooner rather than later. And then on the Tigers stuff, yeah, nice to see Mize back. Looks like Reese Olson's on his way back, hopefully. But then apparently Jackson Jobe today, his velo is way down and the Tigers like wouldn't make him available to reporters. So he wasn't pulled from the game with an injury, but it seems like something might be up with him. So Tigers rotation is definitely in flux right now.
It's kind of like last year where it was TARIK, SKUBAL and then a bunch of guys who cycled in and out. This year, though, the guys who are cycling in and out are a little bit better, though. So it's a kind of unfortunate for that team.
Yeah, could open up a spot for Sawyer Gibson Long, our PL favorite. He's not ready yet, but he's close.
All right, moving on to other injury news. Ronel Blanco officially undergoing season-ending elbow surgery. That's what the Astros announced. Jacob deGrom of the Rangers, he's dealing with a blister or some kind of finger injury. He came out of the game a little bit earlier than expected, but he did pitch like 5.2 innings, so it's not, anything drastic. He is expected to start on Sunday, but just check in case the Rangers decide to push his start of game back. Stephen Kwan, the Cleveland Guardians, left Wednesday's game with right wrist inflammation. See if the team has any more information on that. Lane Thomas, his teammate, is currently day-to-day dealing with plantar fasciitis. He had already missed, I believe, 2 games. Obviously, that's more of a chronic thing, so it's not something that's ever going to go away. So we'll see how Lane Thomas, how that affects him. Luis Robert Jr. of the White Sox, he's day-to-day with knee soreness, has already missed, I believe, 3 games. So kind of keep an eye on that and see what the White Sox end up doing there. Bryce Harper of the Phillies, day-to-day with a right elbow contusion after getting hit by a pitch, I believe from Spencer Strider. And that's kind of the good news is that it's not something more severe. He's going to be out for a couple more games, but at least it's not an injury that would keep him on the bench for a month or so. Christian Walker of the Astros was removed from today after getting hit by a pitch on his hand. Unfortunate for him. Cataldo Marte and Carson Kelly, the Diamondbacks, both day to day with illness. They've already missed a couple of games, so hopefully they're kind of on the home stretch with that. But yeah, they've been out for a few days. Kyle Finnegan of the Nationals currently day to day with shoulder soreness. He is still technically the closer for the Nationals, but if you want to pick up some saves, I'm not sure if the Nationals are a great source of that, but you could see if there's someone in their bullpen that might be more available. Jose Quintana of the Brewers is expected to return to the team on Sunday, but no official move there yet. Expect that probably Friday or Saturday. Nathan Eovaldi of the Rangers left his game early with right triceps fatigue, but he's not expected to miss time, which I think is kind of interesting. Obviously, he's been on fire in the first 2 months of the season. So hopefully this does not, cause his season to go off the rails. Seth Lugo of the Royals is expected to return sometime this weekend. The Royals have not officially announced which day he is starting, but he should be back. Bryce Miller also could be returning this weekend. We'll see what the Mariners decide to do there. Brandon Woodruff of the Brewers had a high A rehab start today. 7 innings, 0 runs, 6 strikeouts over 74 pitches. His last rehab start is scheduled for Tuesday, but because this is Brandon Woodruff, we all know that is taken with a huge grain of salt on whether this is his actual last rehab start. Yuri
Yeah,
Perez,
had to put last in quotes there in the roundup. I
yeah,
made a comment in my most recent article about how it seems like he's trying to set the record for most innings pitched in a rehab assignment. I think he's at like 36 now. And today it was actually a complete game because it was a doubleheader, so they only played 7 innings. So he might be the only pitcher to ever throw a complete game in a rehab assignment.
yeah. I mean, hey, if he's able to do that and he's not feeling any pain, I'll take it.
Yeah, I just wish I knew the velocity because it wasn't in AAA, but I guess hopefully the next one will be.
Yeah. Yuri Perez of the Marlins is getting a AAA rehab start today, so we'll actually get some stats on him and see how his velocity is doing. Hopefully, Colin Cowser and Jordan Westberg of the Orioles are currently both rehabbing in AAA. Matt Wallner and Parker Meadows are also rehabbing in AAA, but their activation is a bit more imminent than the other two that we just discussed. Eduardo Rodriguez of the Diamondbacks will need one more rehab start before returning. Originally thought he was going to be coming back sooner, but that's fine. Ha-Seong Kim of the Rays, he is starting a rehab assignment in AAA, so that's kind of signaling his return soon as well. Xavier Edwards of the Marlins is going out for a short AAA rehab assignment, but should be back on the team soon. Yu Darvish of the Padres pitched in the minors about 2 weeks ago at this point, but felt tightness, so doesn't look like he's ready to get called up to the majors yet. Jordan Alvarez and Mike Trout, for both of these guys, I mean, we've been kind of saying like maybe they'll come back next week for the past couple of weeks, but still no real updates there. We'll see if both of them get activated next week or not.
Yeah, hoping for the best on them. A lot of guys with day-to-day stuff going on. Hopefully they're good by the time you're listening to this. And then on the rest, I think Kim, he's a nice speed option, maybe an IL stash. His rehab assignment is probably going to be a little bit longer just because he didn't play in spring training or anything and he's rehabbing from surgery. But a lot of these guys should be back pretty quick. I mean, Cowser, Westberg, Wallner, Meadows, Edwards, all them, hopefully you can plug them back into your lineup soon. And it'll be nice to get some pitchers back like Seth Lugo, Woodruff, all those guys.
Yeah, the big thing to note is that a bunch of these guys who got put on the 60-day IL, basically on opening day, they're basically the earliest they can come off, I believe, is the end of this month. So, for some of these guys like Ha-Seong Kim, Yu Darvish, like their returns are imminent, but they can't officially return until probably June 1st or something like that.
Yeah, the Darvish stuff is concerning. I'm hoping we get good news on that soon, but it seems to be could go either way at this point.
Right. All right. In some other transactional news, Kyron Paris officially sent down to the minors after pretty much being unable to do anything at the plate after his hot start. The Angels signed Chris Taylor in his place, so he does not get to move far from the Dodgers to the Angels. We said Marcelo Meyer is called up with the Bregman injury. And I don't know. I haven't really checked too much on his stats. How is he doing so far?
I think he was doing okay before today, and then I want to say he went 0 for 4, but he might have had another at bat when after I checked because the game went into extras. But he's hitting cleanup and playing every day, so the Red Sox are clearly they believe in him, but they're also putting a lot on him.
Yeah. And then, it's kind of some significant news, but not surprising. Andrew Vaughn of the White Sox option to AAA. He was basically getting kind of drafted as, I would say maybe a fringe top 10 first baseman. Probably a little bit lower than that in terms of, how his last year had gone. But obviously this was a guy who, should have been, a starter, a first base starter in most fantasy leagues. I think even 15 teamers, or for sure 15 teamers, maybe even 10 teamers. But yeah, for him getting option to AAA, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, he just, hopefully he can go the path of Spencer Torkelson and eventually bounce back from being a top pick and really struggling at first base. But can't bet on it at this point.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is it for injury news. We are going to do player performances. We're going to do them a little different this time. We're going to talk about some players that were awesome over the weekend, and then a couple players that were awesome during the week, Monday through Wednesday. But yeah, Patrick, we'll start off with you. Who was awesome during the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we absolutely have to lead with Terry SKUBAL. He threw a complete game shutout of the Maddox variety on Sunday, so that's under 100 pitches. So 9 innings, no earned runs, 2 hits, no walks, and 13 strikeouts, 26 whiffs with a 41% CSW. Probably the most dominant game of the entire season. And Nick, in his SP roundup, talked about how he doesn't usually lead with aces, but Scuba was just so masterful that he basically had to. He praised the efficiency. 94 pitches, 13 strikeouts, and a complete game is pretty incredible and not something that we're going to see the likes of. Maybe again this season. He mixed in all five of his pitches actually in this game, and they all returned at least a 72% strike rate. Changeup had a 52% CSW with 14 whiffs on 29 thrown, which is just absurd. His sinker also had a 46% CSW, four seamer, 47% chase rate, and even the slider was getting some stuff done. And then he was able to just rear back on his last pitch and throw 102.6 miles per hour, which it was just incredible. It seems like he is the best pitcher in the league right now. I know that Paul Skeens, Zach Wheeler, some other guys are having incredible seasons. But yeah, I really think that he's the SP1 right now. I know that's where Nick has him. But if you had to take either Scooble or the field on who finishes as the SP1 at the season's end, who are you rolling with?
I mean, barring injury, I feel like it's Scooble. I think he's just so. I wouldn't say he's so far ahead that no one can catch up to him, but I think he's had some of the better performances of the year. We'll talk about Paul Skeens a little bit later. He's seen a little bit of a drop off in strikeout rate this season. I mean, Zach Wheeler is always the the most reliable pitcher possible. Even for him, I don't know if he's has the I don't know, maybe the elite ability that Stewart's been showing so far this year. Um, yeah, I think for Skubal too that the special thing is just that he's doing this after dealing with chronic injuries for a couple seasons. To have like this velocity in this game was really impressive. And 13 strikeouts, man, that is really solid, especially against a team. I believe they were playing the Guardians, who like they're not really a team that strikes out a lot. They have a lot of guys who make good contact, but being able to do that is just yeah, incredibly impressive.
Yeah, and it was like an 11:30 game too. So, I guess he's a morning guy. Doesn't have any problem getting up and dominating. But yeah, I think that he's gonna, if I had to pick one guy, I would definitely pick him to be the SP1. If I had to pick him or the field, I might go with the field just because you never know what could happen. But wins has always been the thing that's held him back, and now the Tigers are one of the best teams in the league. So he's just a stud all around. He's kind of on like a little bit of a Jacob DeGrom arc where he just throws harder and harder every season and just gets better and better. And hopefully he doesn't, blow out like DeGrom did, but it's pretty incredible to watch.
Yeah, I would be. I mean, no one would love to see that. So, yeah, it is funny though. You mentioned the whole wins issue because it was like, yeah, if you thought like a pitcher on the Tigers, if you just think about the Tigers for the last 5 seasons, like they've been awful. But the fact
Mhm.
that they are the best team in baseball right now, I believe, in terms of record, yeah, it kind of helps that you're also able to get those wins, unlike Jacob DeGrom, who was, pitching these one earned run, 7 inning gems and just still finish with a loss because the team couldn't give him any sort of run support.
Yeah, yeah. Paul Skeens is kind of stuck in that place right now too. So my second guy from the weekend, another one of the biggest stars of the fantasy season so far is Pete Crow Armstrong. He specifically, I think it was Saturday or sorry, Friday was his big game. He didn't do much on Saturday and Sunday, but on Friday, he went 3 for 5 with a double, 2 homers, 2 runs scored, and 6 RBI. He's bounced around the lineup a lot. He was hitting leadoff when Ian Happ was injured. And then on Friday, he was in the cleanup spot and he cashed in with his first career grand slam. He became the first Cubs player to have two 6 RBI games in the same month. The grand slam was off the right field foul pole, and it was under review, but was upheld. And the Cubs win in this game against the Reds was a complete team effort. They chased Hunter Green, who was returning from the IL after making him throw 37 pitches in the fourth inning. And PTA has just been dominant. He's been incredible. I really did not expect this. I think a lot of people, this was his first full season in the majors, and he was expected to be a glove first center fielder with some speed. But he's just been an all category stud. 14 homers, 14 steals, 42 runs, 49 RBI, and a 274 average as of Wednesday when we're having this conversation. So I mean, he's obviously in the top 10 right now in terms of value so far, but where does he end up? Do we think that he's going to finish as like a second round player? Do we think there's going to be a little fall off that might push him towards the back end of the top 50, or where are we at on PCA?
Yeah, the thing with PCA, which the discourse was last year, was that he's so valuable because his glove is so good. So he's going to be an everyday center fielder. But I don't think anyone expected this sort of like power outbreak from him. In terms of where he finishes, I would say it seems like he's going to finish as like a top five outfielder, which would put him in that second round sort of area, I think. Maybe even like end of first round sort of value. I think
Mhm.
because he's got both the power and speed combo, and with how good the Cubs are, like again, yeah, like you said, he's a five category player right now in fantasy. Um, and I think it's just impressive that he's just doing. He already has 14 homers and 14 stolen bases. Like he's on his way to a 30-30 season, and we're only a third of the way into the season, which I think is incredibly impressive. I am really curious what his offseason regimen was because I don't think anyone saw this out of him. And the fact that he pretty much did this like under the radar is really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. He never showed this level of power in the minors, right? So you expect guys to regress a little bit at the majors, but he's clearly made some leaps. I think the batting average is a little bit of a mirage. He swings at literally everything. Like I think his chase rate, swing rate, all that stuff is probably 95th to 100th percentile. And obviously, when you're hitting the ball, you might as well swing, right? If you're on a heater, that's there's nothing wrong with that. It's not going to last forever. So, but I mean, the power speed blend is up there with the best guys in the league. Maybe even like Ellie De La Cruz level, which is pretty crazy to think about. It's crazy that you have to like think would I prefer PCA or like Acuna or Jordan Alvarez the rest of the season, but Acuna is probably not going to run that much. So those are kind of guys that he might be at their level right now. It's really insane to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can have that conversation because of the power, right? Like if he was just at like five homers and 14 stolen bases, then you have that conversation. Like, yeah, would you want him over Jordan? Would you want him over Acuna? But the fact that he's showing this off this power speed combo, even if that average dips a little bit, right? Like he's still a player where if you ask me if I'd rather have him or Jordan right now, I'd probably rather have PCA.
Yeah, right. And Ellie De La Cruz, O'Neal Cruz, guys like that, they don't have good batting averages, but they're still great fantasy players. So my third and final guy on the weekend is someone that Nick has been really high on, I think, compared to the rest of the fantasy space. I know that he's available in my 16 team league, which is pretty crazy. And I'm thinking about picking him up, considering that Nick has him 40th on the list. It's Lucas Giolito. So he pitched against the Orioles last weekend, went seven scoreless innings with six hits, two walks, and six strikeouts, only nine whiffs and a 25% CSW on 99 pitches. Nick kind of saw this as more of the same from Giolito. He held his four seamer velocity right around 93, 94. He has a cutter slider hybrid that's kind of his third pitch, and he's using it as a strike pitch now. And then, of course, his trademark changeup. Nick did acknowledge that there was a little bit of luck in the outing. He walked a couple guys and also benefited from an outfield assist. Changeup was not super reliable with only a 51% strike rate and two whiffs on 27 pitches, but the location was good. And the four seamer returned to 32% CSW and was located pretty well upstairs, though there were some moments of contact. So he likes Giolito and definitely still likes him more than I think everybody else in the fantasy space right now. He did bump him down a couple spots on the list, but that's still at 40. So he's super high on him. Doesn't anticipate any hiccups in his return to the mound. Considering that he didn't pitch last year. But are we? I think that Nick's on the right track. I don't know if I have him at 40 exactly, but I do think that there's some real upside here. Do you share the optimism? Or are you a little bit worried about the ratio risk?
Yeah, I think like when you say a top 40 pitcher, like this is someone who should be rostered everywhere. And I don't know if I feel that way about Giolito. And I think part of the challenge is like the changeup isn't as good as we've expected it to be. And that's
Yeah.
his bread and butter, right? If that's the pitch that he's struggling with, like I think like every single start he has is going to be a little bit of it's going to be somewhat luck based, if that can even really be the case. Just like if you don't have your best pitch, like more often than not, I feel like it's just not going to turn into a really good scenario. That being said, I mean, Giolito's been out for a year and a half, so who are we to say that his changeup is his best pitch now, right? Maybe it's this fastball. That's actually the good pitch now that he's using. So I think for me, I'm still maybe not ready to say Giolito is a must pick up. I think his schedule is okay. He faces Atlanta, who is looking maybe a little scarier now, but the Angels and the Rays, those are teams that I think are maybe teams that you would stream against. So I think that makes sense to pick him up as like a maybe a premium streamer. I just don't know if I'd call him an everyday or like a must roster guy just yet.
Yeah, yeah, I think I'm with you. I think I could see the or agree with the 40th rank if he was pitching in a different park. Fenway's just such a tough place to pitch. But we know how deep Nick dives on these guys. So if he's interested in a guy, I'm gonna keep an eye on him at the least, and roster him once I see it. So if he has another good outing, obviously just through seven scoreless. If he strings another one together, I'm gonna make sure I add him to my team.
Yeah, it's kind of like you want to make sure you're ahead of the curve, but not like so far ahead of the curve that your fantasy team takes a little bit of a hit, which I think happened to me with Giolito because I picked him up like pretty much as soon as it sounded like he was ready to come back, and then the first couple starts just weren't that awesome. So
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, I definitely ate a couple in my leagues and had to cut him in, might add him back. So we'll see.
right. All right, moving on to the week. So these are performances from Monday through Wednesday, and we're going to start with another kind of old pitcher, although he's been healthy. So can't really blame his poor performance on health, but it's Kevin Gausman of the Blue Jays going up against Texas on Monday. Got the win in this one. 8 innings, 1 run, 5 hits, no walks, and 6 strikeouts. The big thing about Gausman is that his splitter is back in his last two starts. He's earned 24 whiffs on that pitch alone, including 11 in this one. And if you look at his last 41 or for the previous 41 starts, so eliminate the last two. So pretty much like last year and kind of the beginning of this year, he's only had 3 games where he returned 11 plus whiffs on that splitter, and then he just did it 2 times in a row. So part of the reason for why maybe this improvement is happening is that Gausman did say he kind of fixed his splitter grip, which we all know. Like if you've seen pictures of Gausman's splitter grip, it doesn't make sense. Like it looks like the guy should be injuring his hand every time he throws it, or like tearing off a nail or something. But he made the fix, and yeah, it's actually looking like the elite pitch that he more or less kind of has built his success on for the past couple of years. That being said, to me, Gausman is still kind of a two-pitch pitcher, right? He's fastball splitter. That's kind of his thing. His fastball's not even that good, so it's really all based on how good his splitter is, and obviously his splitter has not been very good over the last year and a half. Um, but if it is really back, could we expect a return to 2022 or 2023 Gausman, where he was getting a low threes ERA? He had a striker rate that was kind of hovered between 28 and 31%. He had 37 quality starts in 62 combined starts across those 2 seasons. So really, really solid numbers there. This year, he's had a really good whip, actually. I've been actually surprised on how low his whip is at 0.94. That's due to actually a lowered walk rate. He's brought it down to about 4%. It was at 7% last year. He already has 6 quality starts and 5 wins on the year through 11 starts. So really impressive stuff actually for Gausman. It's just the fact that he's actually turning into more of a strikeout pitcher in the last 2 starts. So that all being said, for Gausman, is this a guy who we feel in on now? Like we feel like he's actually that this fix is here to stay, or is these just 2 really nice starts and it's kind of still of a wait and hold to see if Gausman is back to SP2 status?
Yeah, I think it's just really nice that there was a tangible change that's producing these results. Maybe we're reading too much into it and it's just confirming what we want to believe. But I mean, it's nice to see that he made an adjustment and it has immediately returned these great results. I don't know if I'll ever get back to SP2, what we saw in 2022 and 2023, where he was a low threes ERA guy. But I do think that the whip is honestly his biggest asset, the whip and the volume. If he just keeps pounding the zone, he's a guy who's going to have like a 1-1 or lower whip, which is fantastic. He might, still give up some hard contact because he is mostly a two-pitch guy, like you said. So the ERA might be more pushing high threes, but that's nothing to be upset about. He's a guy who I really wish I had, this year because it seemed like such a classic case of a guy who was going like close to top 50 last year and probably was falling more like pick 150 this year, and just a great opportunity, to buy low for him to bounce back. So I'm bummed to not have any Gaussman, but it's nice to see him, really get on a roll here.
Right. And admittedly, I think most people who passed on them were probably right in the sense that like last year just looked terrible, right? It looked like the splitter wasn't working, and it's hard to imagine a guy who has two pitches, both of them aren't great, to really bounce back. But yeah, it is impressive to see that he was able to find a fix for the splitter to get it to the place where it is right now. And we're seeing a lot of gains this season in terms of better striker rate, better swinging strike rates. And it's the whip rate's pretty incredible. The ERA is still at 3.68, so still a little high. Like you, I don't think it gets down to even 3.25. That would
Mhm.
be incredible if that ever happened, but don't think that's happening for him. But we'll kind of see with Gosman. Obviously, he's really good right now, and it is tough that I don't. I also don't have any shares of him. It was a big believer in Gosman a couple years back, so it's nice to
Yeah,
see the
and
little bounce back.
it's interesting because he was bad last year, but also the season long numbers, like there was definitely a lot of times where he got lit up and he obviously didn't return his draft price, but he still threw 180 innings with 3.83 ERA and a 1.22 whip. So not what you wanted from him, but that's a pitcher you're fine having on your team just depending on the price. So it's interesting how much later he went than like Pablo Lopez, two guys who were really not great last year and really disappointing. Obviously Lopez is kind of more in his prime, but I think that there are some parallels there.
Yeah, I think with Lopez, like he at least has more pitches to rely on as opposed
Yeah.
to where Gosman was like, yeah, he's got two pitches and both are terrible. So it's a little hard to believe in that formula.
Yeah.
All right, Jose Altuve. I believe this was on Monday. Went 4 for 4 with two homers, 3 runs, and 3 RBI. Yeah, I have Altuve in a couple different spots in fantasy this year. I was super bought into him, mainly because I didn't necessarily want to touch Ketel Marte, and I didn't feel good about any of the other top five outfielders. And yeah, Jose Altuve, who of course we know switched to left field this year, has not had the greatest start to the season. He's had a 232 expected batting average. He's in the first percentile in sweet spot rate, and his average exit velocity so far this season has been 85 miles an hour. The 35-year-old has a career low expo bacon. He's hitting balls on the ground more than ever before. He's barely getting on base 30% of the time. And yeah, I was pretty annoyed with having Jose Altuve on a bunch of my teams. Was really hoping for a little bit more for him. But yeah, last on Monday, I believe this two-homer performance really solid, and it has actually been capping off a really good performance for him overall over the past week. He's actually raised his batting average over 40 points since May 22nd. So recording this on May 28th. So the fact that he's actually increased his batting average over like basically 4 days is pretty impressive. He's also added 4 homers in that time as well. Um, so yeah, but he started the season with a 629 OPS, not good at all. And yet, with how bad second base is in, Altuve is still considered the eighth best second baseman right now. Granted, that's still a far cry from being drafted as the third highest, but also doesn't show that his season has completely cratered because of just how bad second base is overall as a whole. That being said, though, does this week of games for you inspire any hope that Altuve has maybe kind of refound his form and can be at least a top five second baseman for the rest of the season? Or is this just a little bit of a hot streak? And the Altuve that we saw in April and most of May is actually who he is right now for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I mean top five is definitely within the range of outcomes, but I think the top 10 is more likely where he ends up, kind of sticks around where he is currently. The projections really were really bearish on him going into the season, which I was surprised by because he's such a consistent contributor. But, he is a guy who makes the most out of his power, pulling balls into the Crawford boxes for home runs and things like that. So it would have been shocking to see him just completely fall off because of how talented of a player and how strong of a producer he's always been. But it's not, I don't think it will be shocking if he just takes a small step back this season. And then the Astros offense has taken a big step back, right? Jordan is down, Tucker's gone. so the counting stats are really going to suffer. So I think that the slight skills degradation with Altuve and then the real downgrade in the lineup context is going to mean that he doesn't quite return his draft value. But I think that you should still hold, maybe sell high if you could. I saw someone in our Discord who traded him for Spencer Strider. I have no idea how they pulled that off. Good for them. But unless you're getting an offer like that, I think you just got to stick with them because second base was pretty rough.
Yeah, I think one thing that I maybe got hoodwinked about was the fact that he had 22 steals last year, and it was like, oh,
Mm,
Altuve is a potential like 2020 contributor at the second base position, which is really good because obviously, Ketel Marte, great power speed combo. Marcus Semien's a little bit, was a power speed combo, but really isn't at this point.
he is
Um,
nothing now. Ugh.
yeah, he's nothing now. That's really accurate. Ozzy Albies had a down year last year, and so here come, and then I guess Jazz Chisholm was the highest ranked second baseman.
Mhm.
So I mean, he's got his own injury issues. So the fact that Altuve basically came off a 2020 season and he's available at second base, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's repeatable. Like his year before was 17-14, but he had 250 fewer plate appearances in 2023. So the fact that he got, 2020 in a healthy season made me think, well, maybe he can get 2020 again, right? Like we saw that. And then the steals have not been there. Really nothing's been there for Altuve so far. Um, but I'm kind of with you in that this feels more like a flash in the pan rather than like something that could be consistent. Um, that being said, though, the fact that he raised his batting average 40 points kind of shows that we're still kind of in the small sample size sort of time of the year. And just having a couple good weeks could really improve your season long stats. So, yeah, for Altuve, I think he's on the fringe of top five. Again, like second baseman is just such a wasteland that being top five doesn't mean too much right now. I think Ketel Marte is like actually like maybe like 12th or 13th because he's missed a month of games. So we'll see how that ends up for him.
Yeah, the top guys have all been super disappointing. So I think you just gotta roll with it.
Yeah, or trade for Spencer Strider. All right, finally, Paul Skeens had to talk about his game today. 6.2 innings, 4 hits, no earned runs, no walks, and 7 strikeouts against the Diamondbacks. Really good game from Skeens dealing with the Diamondbacks, who obviously are one of the hotter offenses in baseball. His fastball was the main calling card here. He earned 4 whips and 9 called strikes. Good for a 41% CSW. The rest of his pitches, though, were kind of in line with how his season has gone. His secondaries were probably just what you could describe as fine. The CSWs on his splitter, sweeper, and changeup were all kind of in the 20 to 25% range, mainly because he only combined for 7 whiffs on 45 total thrown of those 3 pitches combined. Um, and yeah, that's kind of been the thing with Skeens this year is that he's just not getting as many whiffs as we've seen from guys like SKUBAL or from Wheeler. Nick has him third, and his reason for that is he just doesn't have as much whiffs as the other 2 guys right now. The sinker was pretty good. It had 75% CSW. Basically got 2 whiffs and 4 called strikes over 8 thrown. It's kind of in line with what his season has been, though, with the sinker usage. It's been kind of in the 5 to 10 range, so he doesn't really pull it out that much. Um, I think the problem with Skeens, if there is a problem, is that his first year was just too good. Like the numbers were incredible. He had a ERA below 2, he had a WHIP below 1, and to expect the same thing again from him is probably a little bit of a wishful thinking. That being said, prior to this game, he had a 2.36 ERA and 0.95 WHIP. So the WHIP is still incredible. That ERA you would love to have for any of your pitchers. The one blemish that I've seen from him this year is just that the strikeout rate has dropped. Like last year, he finished with a 32% strikeout rate. Like those are really good numbers. This year, it's down to 26%. So, yeah, it's mostly been drops. It's mostly been dropping because of just small drops in called strikes and in whiff rate. So it hasn't been that like, oh, all of a sudden he can't get anyone to swing at any of his pitches. It's just kind of been a combination of those two things dropping a little bit. So that all being said, it feels a little bit nitpicky it feels a bit nitpicky to talk about this guy in this way, who is again the third ranked pitcher on Nick's list. So here's the fun question, I guess. To you, who currently has the edge between Wheeler and Skeens for the NL Cy Young?
Yeah, I mean, I guess after today, maybe Skeens just has his nose ahead. I mean, his ERA is pushing almost under 2, and that's what I care the most about. I mean, I know that some people care about wins, but I really, hope that that continues to become de-emphasized in Cy Young voting. So I guess that he has a slight edge right now, but Wheeler, I think, has had 3 straight scoreless starts, so he's just been on fire. I think he got off to a little bit of an uneven start, but has been pretty much untouchable since then. I think I think I'd give it to Wheeler. I think they're really similar pitchers, actually. They're both kind of Skeens is still early in his career, so we don't know for sure, but he seems to be modeling himself as a workhorse rather than a guy who's going to throw 100 pitches in 6 innings and be done. So I think they're super similar, and it'll be fun to see them go head to head. I don't know which way I'm leaning, but I think I'll go with Wheeler. I guess it's just the track record is there, and the decreased Ks from Skeens. He could run into some bad batted ball luck at some point.
Yeah, I know wins is a fantasy category, unfortunately, for a lot of different leagues. Skeens currently has 3 wins, but he's got 8 quality starts, which just kind of speaks to like how good of a pitcher he is, and just how poor that Pittsburgh offense is behind him. So O'Neill Cruz is still hitting bombs, but unfortunately, he's just one player, and the rest of the team is not doing too much to help Skeens get those wins.
Yeah, they've had a couple explosions the last couple of days though, so maybe it's the start of something, but I can't get too optimistic about it.
Yeah, I do think I have Wheeler. I mean, I have a soft spot for him. I feel like he's deserved the Cy Young so many years, and he's always just been, um, just being because it was just another really good pitcher in the National League that year. So I do think it's pretty close between the two. Wheeler I think has a little bit of a higher ERA than Skeens does, but I think that's due to the fact that his starts earlier in the year were a little bit shaky. But Skeens also had a little bit of a shaky start to the season as well. So both those guys really elite pitches. I would love to see Wheeler win it, but if Skeens won it, that'd be pretty awesome too for a guy in his second year.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, that wraps it up for the player performances. Let's talk about some streamers. Who do you got, Patrick?
Yeah, so just want to hit a really quick recap of last week and 2 weeks ago, just because it's been going really well. We've been getting a lot of great starts out of these guys. Landon Roop went last Friday, so right after we recorded, and he threw 6 scoreless innings, got the win. Uh, Jamison Tyone was a guy from this past week. First start, he got the win in 6 1/3 with 1 earned run, 7 Ks. Ryan Weathers, no decision, 5 2/3, no run, 6 Ks. That was his first start of the week. Cade Horton, in his only start of the week, took the no decision with 6 innings, 2 earned, 6 Ks. Michael Lorenzen, this is the one loss on the record here, and it was ugly. First start of the week, too, and it was the easier matchup. 5 innings, 6 earned, 2.8 whip, which is brutal. Zach Littell, first start of the week, 6 1/3, got the win with 1 earned and 4 Ks. And Ryan Nelson, first start of the week, also 6 2/3 win, no runs, 4 Ks. So everybody was awesome except for Lorenzen. I had to eat that one in my great RotoWire team, unfortunately. That's the way it goes sometimes. So yeah, great, great. Hopefully we can keep up the momentum. I think that the streaming this week is not quite as fruitful, so I had to dig a little deeper. First one is Lance McCullers. He's 7% Yahoo, 3% ESPN. He gets a likely road two-step, Pittsburgh and Cleveland. So two weaker offenses, not the worst offenses, but definitely weaker. And I'm recommending him because he went over 100 pitches today and had 12 Ks in 6 innings. He did give up 3 runs, but I think he's a great strikeout option and hopefully wins option against these weaker opponents. And then the second one, we're going back to the well on Cade Horton because the Cubs just continue to have great matchups. He has another, also a road to start Nationals and Tigers. So Tigers are a good offense, so not quite as good of the matchups, making it maybe a riskier ratio play. But I've liked what I've seen. He seems pretty consistent. He's 19% Yahoo, 12% ESPN. And then third is Lucas Giolito, who we talked about earlier. There's a little bit of lack of clarity with the schedule here because Hunter Dobbins actually pitched out of the bullpen today. So it seems like they might be going back to a 5-man with Richard Fitz replacing Hunter Dobbins. If that is the case, he's probably going to get the Angels on Wednesday. That is at home, so Fenway's not ideal, but the Angels are a weaker lineup. And then lastly, this is deeper leagues only. Colton Gordon of the Astros, 2% Yahoo, 1% ESPN. He's kind of a soft tossing command over stuff lefty. He gets at Cleveland next week for just one start and then home against the White Sox the next week. So two good matchups in a row. but you could probably just cut him and then add him back if you wanted him for the White Sox. That's a better option in wins leagues because he hasn't gotten to 6 innings yet in the major leagues. But yeah, a nice potentially deep play there.
Yeah, I can't help but notice we're not recommending Jameson Taillon for like the millionth week in a row.
I know.
But we are
I
recommending a Cubs pitcher still. So,
Yeah,
sometimes you just got to follow the schedule.
yeah, and I've been noticing that like ESPN leagues just seem incredibly dead compared to Yahoo. There's dead leagues everywhere, but there's a lot of guys who are like 35% Yahoo, 20% ESPN, or even 15%. So it's kind of at the point where you might not even be able to consider guys like Tyon and Weather streamers. Hoping to provide a little bit more insightful calls.
Yeah, I do love that Lance McCullers streaming pick though, just because of part of it's the story, right, with McCullers,
Mhm.
but it is good to see that he is going deep into games and he's getting strikeouts. Um, and yeah, I'm looking forward to see how that goes next week. Obviously, we'll have the Pittsburgh start at least. Probably don't get the
Mhm.
Cleveland start by the time we record, but yeah, he's been a guy who is fun to see at least that he's making his comeback and it's actually real. It's not like he's just here for a start and that he's back to being a poor pitcher. He's actually like doing really well.
Yeah, and he couldn't make it out of the first inning a couple weeks ago, so that's going to be dragging down his ratios all season. But it seems like he's really leaning on the knuckle curve and the slider and barely throwing any fastballs, which I think is the way for him to go at this point. So hopefully he's able to keep racking up some Ks.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for all the streamers. Yeah, definitely check those guys out. See if they're available in your leagues. But that is going to wrap it up for our podcast today. You can find us again on Twitter, This Week PL. Send us your comments and questions to our email address. You can find myself on Twitter at John Kuh. You can find Patrick at P Fitzgerald _99. Again, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Pitcherless podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever else you listen, and leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy the show. Lastly, sign up for Pitcherless Pro. By doing so, you can join us in the Discord, get advice from all the fantasy experts and writers over there, and question why the heck is someone trading Jose Altuve for Spencer Strider. But yeah, that is all for this week. We will be back next week with another full episode of This Week in Fantasy Baseball. For Patrick, I'm John, and we'll see you in the next one. Later, everyone.